Listeners of the Randomness of Nothing podcast, I'm always honored to be able to get time out from special guests, business owners, CEOs, and people who make differences in the world and their communities around them. This man epitomizes it. He's an individual that has done business in 30 plus countries for 20 years of international business. Mr. Jean-Christian Redani, thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
This is a big time one because your story is so fascinating. You know, you are the CEO and founder of Symbiosis Infinity Group, and you have a numerous number of business accolades on your belt, and now you're using business to be in a responsible way where, yes, you can conduct business, but it has to be in a morally ethical way where it also builds the communities and countries that they do business in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it all starts, I think, with the realization that we all have a purpose in life, and it all starts from within. And I always say you can always look for outside validation, outside rewards, but the reward needs to come from within. And do what makes you feel fulfilled and happy in life while contributing to improving the life of people. And for me, it all started by realizing that finding my purpose was the first thing that I needed to do after, doing so many types of business projects all around the world and just focusing on value creation for, making profit. And I came at a point in my life where God or the universe or whatever you believe in forced me to a full stop of everything, of my personal life, my business life. And basically I was pushed to look inwards and I realized that I was not contributing positively. And I had so many skills and experiences that could profit and benefit other people all around the world. And this is how I decided to combine my international business experience skills with my passions and my purpose, which is, helping people to have a better standard of life. And this is how we came to create Symbiosis Infinity Group, which is a consulting firm based here in Europe, but we're working worldwide to create a bridge between developing markets and developed region and create circularity around supply chain and possibilities of ethical investment for transformation of raw material products at source so that you can create more value, more jobs, more opportunities for the people in developing regions. Most specifically, right now, what we're working on is mostly Africa.
Right. Right. I try to stay history when it comes to, my knowledge of things. And obviously that's a very important topic, particularly when you realize how many countries got exploited for their raw goods and materials. I mean, this is a show that obviously doesn't not make anybody feel bad or get political, but that is, there are some scars and wounds from when people didn't get the reciprocated back of the goods that were coming out of their countries. They had a lot of worth, but they didn't see the money and investments back into their countries or locations that the exporters did, so to speak.
Yeah. And I think in some ways, this is still, going on today. And this is where we come in with a mindset of not just extraction of resources, but more adding value to the resources that not only planet Earth provides,
right,
but also that the entire communities actually are thriving thanks to these materials. So just to give you a very concrete example of one big project that we're working on right now, which has tremendous potential, is cocoa husk.
Beautiful.
So a lot of people know about cocoa beans, right?
Yeah.
To make chocolate
Yes.
and so on. But cocoa husk is a raw material that's 99% of the time left untouched in the field. And it has tremendous applications for nutraceuticals, for biodegradable packaging,
Yes.
and as a natural food ingredient as well.
Absolutely.
There's also some research being done around biofuels.
That's amazing.
That is, from cocoa husk. Now, the farmers in the cooperatives in Cameroon that we work with, they don't utilize this. And at this very moment of time, as we're speaking now, on the 18th of March 2026, the cocoa industry is in big crisis. The prices are going down. Farmers cannot refinance their operation. They owe a lot of money. So what we're providing here is a solution to these farmers to diversify their sources of income while responding to a market demand.
Right.
So the goal here is that everyone wins. We all win. And this is how business transactions should be done. It's not just one-sided or two-sided.
Right.
So I'm a conscious business growth advisor. And what we do is when we have such a project, we analyze all the stakeholders that are within the environment, and we say, okay, how can we make it so that everyone more or less equally benefits the same from this business negotiations and business deal that we're doing so that everybody wins. And this
Right.
is the spirit that we have when we conduct such project.
That's amazing work, right? So like it's crazy. So you'll have a product in your backyard, and you don't realize the full breadth and scope of what it can actually accomplish. And here you come in and say, okay, well, yes, your market may not be in this particular avenue, but have you talked about this instead, right? So your level of expertise, and I saw you have a large team, in fact, that can assist with those things, because the reality about it is you have blind spots if you don't actually know what you don't know, right? And so then you could just focus on I just need to sell coca, and you're like, wait, you can be in the pharmaceutical business rather than just the food consumption or coffee business, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touch a very good point here. The fact that we cannot do this by ourselves.
Right.
So we're part of a consultant group of 1,200 people that are organized around the Conscious Business Network
Right.
worldwide. So we rely heavily on this network in order not only to spread the word, but also to create synergies all around the world, in different parts of the globe, and be able to reach out as many people as possible. Now, of course, we all have our own expertise and our own passions, and this is
Right.
why myself, I partner up with people that are experts in their field. For example, we have an expert in impact measurement, an impact measurement consultant who's able to create models, AI generated models, to see what kind of impact we have with the projects, whether it is to communities or on the planet, on every stakeholder that we involved.
Right.
And then we're able to generate projections. So to say, okay, in 6 months, this should lead us here.
Right.
And then after 6 months, we reevaluate what we call our loop, our circular loop, to say,
Right.
okay, we achieved our goals here, but maybe we should put more emphasis, for example, on environmental protection
Right.
on this particular community. So it's very important, I believe, in everything that you do, that you surround yourself with people that are, first of all, like-minded, so
Right.
that have the same vision and mission as you, but that have different skills. And this is a key to success.
Do you find the reception of some of these places that you do business with, and say, okay, I'm operating in good faith? There is, obviously history can be a hard thing for people to overcome, despite things that have happened, generations ago. Do you sit back and say this time will be different? And that's across the board, regardless of what country you do business in, because history has shown that recently certain ambassadors aren't allowed to come back to certain countries because of lingering tensions of what happened hundreds of years ago. Do you find people are receptive to the new business model you're trying to integrate?
Arshad, I think that there's kind of an awakening around the world on the way we've been operating since the birth of capitalism,
Yes.
and that we see that it's coming to exhaustion,
Right.
because profit at all cost, the extraction of material, and the I would say the unfair balance that has been created towards emerging countries and developed markets is
Right.
coming to an end, simply because also locally, especially in Africa, what we see is that people are realizing that the wealth is within them and within their land
Without
and
question.
their ancestral knowledge as well.
Right.
And I think that a lot of people are, whatever happened in the past is, of course, always wounds that we all carry
Of
one
course.
way or another. But I think that the new generations are, especially in Africa, what I see when I travel there is very ambitious people, very creative,
Right.
that have a wealth of knowledge and a passion in order to develop, business for good. And that's why, for example, the cooperatives we work in Cameroon, that are cocoa cooperatives,
Right.
they don't have a lot of resources.
Right.
So we, work with them to make sure that they make the best out of the resources that they have. And I think that they're very appreciative of that. Now, on the other side, you have the global companies.
Mhm.
You have global companies or medium-sized companies, which is mostly the companies we work with. We do
Right.
not necessarily work with large groups, but we work mostly with medium-sized companies that are around from 50 million to 300 million
I
US
saw that on your
dollar
website.
turnover. Yeah, yeah. Why we do that? Because they have kind of a conscious approach to doing business, and they want to leave a legacy behind,
Right.
and they do not necessarily have the network or the capacity to handle circularity as big groups do.
Right.
And we find out that a lot of these companies are actually doing a lot of good already,
Of course.
but they don't know how to translate it
Right.
from a branding point of view. And this is where what we created, which is the symbiosis infinity loop, is also based on conscious branding. I mean,
Yeah.
you're doing this, but this is great for the community. This is great for the environment. Why aren't you communicating this to
Right,
the
right,
world?
right.
Because this becomes a very powerful tool to bind yourself at an emotional level with your customers. And what does that do? When you have an emotional bond with your customers, then you don't need to spend so much money on marketing.
Right.
Your customer loyalty increases, your sales reputation increases, your marketing costs decrease. And what does
Absolutely.
that do? Your profit increases.
Without
So by
question.
doing good, you actually make more profit by securing your customers on the long time. So that we have a whole chain of stakeholders that consciously or unconsciously
Right.
work together for good
Right.
and are doing better than the regular business practices that we've seen so far.
There's no question that you can, I know like sometimes capitalism became a dirty word, but it's like you should make money. Like money, that is not a bad thing. It's just a case
Oh
of,
yeah.
right. It's just a case of sitting back and saying, okay, well, these countries do need assistance and we can be a force for good. Like if there's rubber, if there's, precious metals, let's see how you benefit. Let's make sure that if you are extracting it, there's safety measures in place. Let's make sure that the currency exchange rate is favorable, depending on which bank or financial institution is being utilized and used. So, and I think one of the reasons, and this is just my opinion, that maybe companies don't do that is because they're scared of promoting their good deeds, so to speak, right? So it's like, okay, yes, I'm being a force for good. We do a lot of things, but maybe they're conscious of saying, am I supposed to really promote that I'm doing certain good things because maybe good deeds are supposed to be done privately, so to speak, right?
Yeah,
It gets
yeah.
dicey.
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's two ways. I think you also touch on a very good point. Is that some companies want to keep this private, and this is about, for example, I there's two different things. There's philanthropy.
Right.
So philanthropy, which I'm also involved with. You don't necessarily want to claim that to the world. You do this for yourself. You do this for the communities and so on that you help. But you don't need to expose that to the public. However, when it comes to, I would say, the conscious business approach that we have, it's very important to be able to communicate some of the actions
Right.
that you do because it helps you grow your business. And you touch also another very good point. Making money is essential to a business.
No
It is essential.
question.
It's like, but it shouldn't be the purpose of the business.
Right.
It's like you as a human being. You need to breathe in order
Yes.
to live. But your purpose is not to breathe.
Exactly.
Because if your purpose would be just to breathe,
Yeah.
you would just stay on your couch or on your chair and just breathe the whole thing. Right? But
Yeah.
you have beyond that, you have a purpose. And it all comes down. We always advise companies. The first question I ask when I meet with companies here in Europe or in the US or anywhere else in the world is that, what is your purpose?
Right.
Why are you in business? You're not here in business just to sell chocolate, for example.
Correct.
You need to think beyond that. You need to go beyond that. And only then, when you find your purpose as a company and as a human being, can you make a great contribution to the
Without
world.
question.
And it all starts from doing the work within. So there is a lot of work, like spiritual and personal development work, that one has to do as a leader to do that. And then you duplicate what you achieved inside of you to your organization, to you as leadership.
Right.
And then there is another layer to this, is that you need to be sure that at the corporate level, this purpose is clearly identified in the core of the DNA of the company, from the top management all the way down to the top floor, the shop floor.
Right.
That means that everyone that goes to work in your company needs to go and wake up and have the same purpose, the same idea. I know why I go to work.
Right.
It's for reason X, Y, and Z beyond my paycheck.
Right.
And this makes a whole difference in people's life,
Yes.
first of all, in the company, and in the message that business can be a force for good all around.
So before I dive deep into your background, I also have to say that, if because I really want to know how you got your start as far as education and where you first got your foot into the door to do this. But I'll just to leapfrog off, just to piggyback off what you said, if you only focus on your final product, even if you don't necessarily want to come out and be the force of good, which you ultimately should be, you'll also find out you have safety and violations and liability things that can happen if you're only driven. If you're in the food consumption business, for example, and it's only about selling the next chocolate bar, you can kill people, right? You can legitimately kill people.
Yeah.
So that's how serious it is. Then we've seen, horror stories of companies that just had focused on one thing, and then a really bad incident, takes place because they didn't take those protocols and procedures in place to be a force of ethical good.
Yeah, and this is where traceability comes in as well, and this is a very important part of what we do with the communities in Africa. Is that we so part of what of the symbiosis infinity loop that we created is dedicated to innovation and improvement of quality control processes, which we attach a lot of importance to. It means that when we negotiate deals between farmers or cooperatives or smaller companies in the developing region, we ensure that part of the profit that is compromised in doing these ethical negotiations is reinvested in innovation and quality improvement to serve the customers at the end much better. Because this is
Fantastic.
something that is extremely important, because you don't want to create a circular supply chain that can be circular, ethical, but that is not traceable, 100% traceable.
Right,
And
right,
our goal is really to give the opportunities to these cooperatives, to these farmers, to gain a little bit more money each year so that this money can be reinvested in optimizing their processes. And what does that do? That benefits also the companies that actually buys from them. So on the long term, they are 100% sure that what they buy is 100% traceable,
right,
100% controlled, and that the product that they receive is of much better quality if they pay $1 or $2 more per ton,
right.
rather than squeezing the price, which is not going to enable the farmers to actually make a good standard of living and reinvest part of the money to service their customers better.
Wonderful.
Again, it is what we call the symbiosis infinity loop.
Right.
Why? Because symbiosis, we should live in symbiosis. I always compare the business that we create as nature. When you go in the forest, every tree, every element is dependent on each other. They
Right.
don't compete. They support each other by
Yes.
giving each other nutrients,
Yes.
sunlight, birds interacting with trees, trees interacting with one another. And guess what? You don't need to have AI model issued in order to understand that this is the perfect symbiosis,
Right.
because you go in nature and you see that everything works perfectly the way it should, because it's in harmony, in
Without
symbiosis.
question.
Infinity, why? Because once there's an infinite amount of energy in the world. Energy is energy, it never dies, it always transmutes.
Mhm.
So once you create this loop between the stakeholders, then it can be regenerate itself infinitely, because once you engage that, there is kind of a, I would say, um, um, a link that is created by the different entities and the different people that work together, that is more based on trust and more based on us being human beings rather
Wonderful.
than just people doing business together.
Without
So
question.
all in all, it's a very important approach that humans should be at the center, human and the planet, but first the humans should be at the center of whatever business deal we do. And if we can make money while
Right.
empowering people around it, then it's the perfect combination.
Well, the other thing that happens too is like countries always have to evolve and find new available ways to power their industries and their businesses, right? If a certain sector of the economy is deemed, I certainly want to get political, but if they said that certain chemicals are being released and they would like to transition to a different form of energy usage, certain countries now have those resources, and things evolve. Whether buildings still need to be built, and they'll find out that there's more sustainable resources in some of these countries that do have these resources. And so by acting in good faith and by partnering, in the manner that you do see fit, there's a great growth opportunity. And at the end of the day, businesses need emerging markets, right? And so now you have a situation where if there is an emerging market that has potential for business growth, I think businesses are sitting back and say this is an untapped market that needs attention, and we can put the adequate resources in place. I did have a quick question though. How in the world did you get into this field of work?
That's a very good question. It would require a full episode, but I'll try to I'll try to put it shortly. Um, I would say a year and a half ago, I had a full stop in my life where all my life turned upside down, basically,
Okay.
on the personal level. And I had a big sudden realization that, forced me to stop. When when you keep running from your destiny, God or the universe, whatever you believe in,
It's funny how that works out.
will always have a way to
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
recall and remind you that you're not running in the right direction, that you're just
yeah,
like a hamster wheel.
yeah.
And it was the case for me. Unfortunately for me, I learned my lessons always the hard way. Some people learn them the soft way. Me, I always learned the hard way. But it's good because through, I would say, through uh, the growth that series of events triggered, that were triggered in my life, it forced me to stop and to look inwards. And then this is what I did. I stopped my business activity. I stopped my, I would say, my normal routine.
Mhm.
I went inwards, went into a spiritual journey
Beautiful.
and personal development, looking really deep inside myself and figuring out who I was really. Was I, just wearing a mask to please the people around me and to, fulfill the wish fulfillments of my father's hope or my mother or
Yeah,
the way I wanted society to see me? And I realized that for most part, I was myself, but not 100%. And I said, you can do more than that. You can be totally yourself, even in the business that you want to build. And I went online, and one thing led to another. When something is meant to be,
absolutely.
the right people, and the right
No
opportunities
question.
are brought to you. And I went online, and I learned about conscious capitalism, which is a movement that was created by John Mackey, CEO of Whole Foods, back in the 90s. Dig into conscious capitalism, got connected to people, met Thomas Eckschmidt, who was my mentor and our special advisor in the company. He's the founder of Conscious Capitalism Brazil. He has a certification program of 1,200 consultants around the world. So I took the program, and at the same time, while I was developing this skill, I was like, how can I combine the amazing experience I have negotiating deals in luxurious boardrooms in multinational companies in
Wonderful.
Europe, or sitting on two cardboards, for example, in Nigeria, and meeting people there
Yeah,
in the middle of the jungle, because I knew both worlds and I understood both worlds. And how can I combine that and make a contribution to the world? So I took a program from a company called Shiftco, which is a company that helps conscious entrepreneurs build up their vision into a business model. And so I did that for a year, I would say, or for at least 8 months, and slowly and surely created what is today Symbiosis Infinity Group.
And I love the broad overview because I can only imagine the breadth and scope of what it took to get all these stakeholders involved, right? And the planning, and because anytime, like, it's like when I did this podcast, like, it was like it called me, right? I'm sitting here watching documentaries. I'm sitting here watching, I go down the wormhole of the internet, and I want to know how this operated, how this functioned, how this was made. And then I was like, man, you know what? I might want to talk to the people that do it, and maybe we can have a good conversation in the process of it. I'm not smart enough
Yeah,
to create a multinational business, but I think I'm smart enough to talk to the person that did, right? So, like, it
yeah,
kind of works itself out in the universe. But when you have that moment and that passion and that drive, it fuels you and it keeps you up at night, right? Because you get consumed by it, and then you realize this is what you always wanted to do.
absolutely. You touch on another very good point here is you need to feel it in your heart and in your soul that it is the right thing to do, not only for the planet and the people, but also for you. Always listen to your calling. If it feels good in your heart, do it. If it doesn't feel good,
Don't
don't do it. This is how
exactly
I function now.
100%.
I try to use more of my heart center rather than my brain center
Yep.
nowadays. And this is why, when I'm with my partners and collaborators, we don't brainstorm, we heartstorm. So we heartstorm because it has to come from the heart. And I always say a business strategy without a soul is not sustainable because it doesn't, fulfill you and the needs of whatever you can bring to the world. So in every business strategy, every project that we entertain, we look beyond the simple business matrix.
Right, right.
We say, does it feel good to do that? Is it, of course, there is business matrix that need to be applicable, because if there's no market for a product, you can work all the passion and the dedication you want, you will not
Yes.
be successful, because at the end of the day,
Yeah,
you're also here to generate profit.
without
But it
question.
has to, every boxes have to tick, I would say. Your heart box, your soul box, of course, your brain, and all the business matrix that proof that it is a good product or a good material
Yeah.
to work on and to create circular supply chain, but also investment opportunities to transform this product at source, then it's okay, we can go ahead. And for example, for this cocoa husk, we're currently working with several companies to create circularity around this supply chain and to bring this cocoa husk from Cameroon to many places in the world. But we go beyond that because having a raw material export doesn't create a lot of value as long as it helps, as much as it helps at the beginning. This is just the first step of what we do. What we do after that, once this is secured and once we have a good rotation in terms of and steady orders that allow all parties to generate profit and be able to create a little bit of circularity, well, we encourage with our partners, and we work with impact funding partners as well, is to create local transformation at source. That means instead of having just this raw material sent anywhere else in the world, why don't we create a transformation unit in Cameroon to turn this cocoa husk into powder?
Right.
Because this powder is
Sure.
used for nutrients, for as a food ingredient, and is used by huge corporations
Absolutely.
like
There's
Heinz,
Nestle.
like Nestle,
Yep.
and Danone and all this. But so, and this creates what? This creates more technology
No question.
input. This creates more jobs,
Right.
more knowledge, and therefore more community empowerment and the increase of standard of life of living from the local population. For the companies, the multinational companies or medium-sized companies that used to import this raw material but transform it themselves, we don't say don't transform it anymore, but half, and gradually you will see that the price that you will get for processing this cocoa husk, for example, as a powder in Cameroon is so much cheaper
Right.
than what you're doing locally in Switzerland or in France, for
No
example.
question.
And here you also have a comparative advantage. So it's all a matter of not rushing, identifying the right opportunities, putting systems in place step by step
Right.
that allow circularity, sustainability, and ethical investment and business processes to be put in place. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't happen overnight. So if
Right.
you're in for the quick buck, don't be in this industry.
Right. Right.
You'd rather sell some stuff on Shopify or be in the music industry selling tickets,
Yeah.
which is great for the people that like this. But it's not it it's a more of a long-term vision that has a purpose or that has something beyond just fortune and fame,
Without
and this is
question.
what we're in for.
I
Yeah.
think I'm always fortunate enough to talk to businesses like this because these are the ones that unless you actually know somebody and talk to somebody, you're really not going to know. It's like the behind the scenes companies, right? Like somebody right now is doing, you're doing the work that you're doing right now, and it's not going to be on a billboard, so to speak, that this is what's taking place. So
Mm.
all these wonderful things that you're doing, you really have to get a chance to talk to people like yourself to know that these things are taking place in real time at the local level, operating ethically, sourcing at the raw materials location, getting it all the way to the finished process location, and ultimately to the final consumer. Like you don't
Sure.
really hear
Sure.
about that unless you really talk to people like yourself. So I'm really fascinated and intrigued by being able to talk to somebody that lives and breathes it, and I'm really honored by it
Well,
because it's like
well,
a
we're
byproduct.
very thankful. We're very thankful that you invited us to the show and be able to spread the word. And this is how we communicate this through people to people, through meeting people like you, for being honored to be in podcasts as well. And if we reach one or two people that is interested in partnering up with us,
Yeah.
thanks to you, then it's already progress. We do this. Of course, we need to spread the word. We do, but we don't do this for fame. We don't do this to say, hey, look how good I'm doing, or look how much money we help generate. We do this because we feel it's good. We feel it's important to do this because as human beings, our main purpose should be to serve one another and to help each other
Mhm.
make the world a simple, better place. And it doesn't necessarily take millions to be able to make a difference in people's world
Right.
and in people's life. And I always say, one act of generosity at a time. It all starts here.
Mhm.
For me, it's common sense, for example, that if I go to the supermarket and if I see a homeless man on the side of the supermarket, I'm not going to give him money, but I'm going to buy a loaf of bread and give it to him.
Right.
Because this is for me, it's common sense. If you see someone that is in need and you are able to help him or her, why don't you do it?
Right.
It's basic human being behavior,
Right.
right? And once you scale that, and once you can scale that, and you have the ability, the network, the knowledge, the resources to be able to scale that at a higher level, then God bless. You know,
Right. Right.
this is great. But it doesn't take big actions. You know, just one act of kindness and generosity always, makes a difference. The one thing that I always taught I have two daughters, since their young age, the first thing that I told them is respect everyone the same.
Right.
In your life, whether it is a janitor, whether it's a CEO or
Absolutely.
a cashier,
Without question.
everyone is
Without
at the
question.
same level. We are all humans. We are all human beings. We all live on the same planet. We are all connected one way or another. So don't disrespect anyone, and don't. If someone makes you feel that you're less, just don't say anything. Just push them on the side and
Sure. Keep it
continue your
moving.
life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so,
So this is
and
important.
I would just say this too, is that it's imperative that companies obviously approach some model of compassion around the environments with them, because your consumer base is more knowledgeable about your business practices than they ever have been. So right
Yeah.
now, that board that may be on the sidelines of certain business practices, if only for their own economic survival, in the future, we'll say our consumer base is very tech savvy. The information is out there in real time. And if we're doing anything that could be judged as exploitative, it could be very bad for us. So obviously nobody's perfect. Even the most vetted of companies and suppliers, things can happen. But I think if their heart's in the right place while making money and producing goods, they have a great outcome for themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're right. Yeah, having your heart in the right place is very important. Of course, there are companies there's a lot of companies out there that are doing great. We're more now in the chocolate space with cacaos. You have companies like Tony's Chocolonely, a brand from the Netherlands that been ethical sourcing and circularity in their supply chain for decades now, and they're doing great. They're expanding around the world. And their consumer base. Of course, their chocolate is more expensive, but guess what? Your customers don't, when they buy your product, they just don't buy chocolate. They buy a story behind it.
Right,
It makes
right,
them feel good, not only the
right,
taste of chocolate,
right.
but it makes people feel good. When you go and buy a t-shirt and you know that this t-shirt is there's no child labor produced,
Right.
that the material that you're buying are 100% recycled,
Yeah.
and that you're doing something good for the planet, then it makes you feel good. And guess what? This is dopamine. And as human beings, we crave dopamine.
Yes.
And you get dopamine from a lot of things. Either some people drink, some people take drugs, some people go to the gym,
I'm
and some people get dopamine from the rush of buying something that makes them
exactly.
excited,
Exactly.
right? And because they know it's good for them and for the planet, and it's a good purchase. So all in all, as we were saying at the beginning, everybody wins. And I think there's a more and more conscious base of consumers around the world, especially now with the new generations that are not willing just to buy products for the sake of buying products, but to buy
Right.
a story behind. And
Yes.
this is also where we come in with our company, is that we work directly with marketing and branding departments of different companies to help them shape this story that we help create around the business deal, so that the loop is completed. Just to give you a little example, with this cocoa husk, it's turned into powder, and then the powder is reused in chocolate, right?
Right.
It's meant to make chocolate to add some certain flavor. Then what we help companies do is to say, okay, well, how, you're doing this, but how do you promote this to your consumers? So very simple ways that we came up with, for example, is to add a small QR code on the chocolate bars or
Exactly.
anything that
Wonderful.
customers can tag. And then what it does on your phone, it's going to pop up. And then we're going to create like a 20-second clip of all the communities that you are helping through your purchase of this
Wonderful.
chocolate. And
Wonderful.
then you're going to see that like, oh wow, what's going to happen? Most probably is going to buy 2 or 3 more chocolate bars, or the next time he
Sure.
comes, he's going to remind you, oh yeah, the last time I opened this QR code, and by buying this chocolate bar, I'm helping these people. What I'm going to tell my friends. And then you have a whole consumer base that is suddenly directly or indirectly involved with community empowerment through their purchase. And that increases their sales repetition, that increases the loyalty, the customer loyalty, and that increases your profit. So
Absolutely.
It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer.
It really is. And so I always, and like I said, I love a part two to this. I really do, because I think we can dive into some really important things that we haven't done already. Just because I want to be conscious of your time, and I'm very appreciative of it. Where can people find Jean-Christian Redani and you're the wonderful work you do with Symbiosis?
Okay, so the best way to connect with us is through our website. So it's sigconsulting.net, or via LinkedIn. If you search my name, Jean-Christian Rindoni, on LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I have a solid base of followers. And we, of course, we welcome any ideas, any like-minded people that would like to partner up with us or have any ideas of how we can grow our business together, and create some synergies to promote business for good. And we are always very much looking forward to the next project, to the next, I would say, challenge to overcome and to help people overcome in whichever community or part of the world they're in.
Right.
Considering what we know and the network we have, I believe that when you have a collective mindset that is similar, with same vision and putting your heart in the right place,
Right.
while, of course, I insist, enabling everyone to generate some profit, because this is very important. I'm also a business. I need to generate profit as well.
Of course.
Then you have the right combination for success. But again, it's more of a long-term commitment in order to really create sustainable and ethical business environment that benefit everybody that is involved.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that you've done well is that you've come in good faith and you've gotten great results as a result. So whatever
Yes.
moment of clarity that hit with you, you're spreading it across the world, and it's well received. And I'm looking forward to hearing about your continued success, and I'm looking forward to following up with you as well.
Thank you, Rashad. Thank you again. You're doing a great job, by the way. I've been watching a lot of episodes of your podcast.
I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure and an honor to be able to join forces with you.
Yeah.
And hope we can continue the conversation in the coming weeks and coming months. So thank you so much.
And any businesses that would be interested in partnering with Jean-Christian Redani and Symbiosis Infinity Group, please reach out to him or watch this episode, follow, and his communication. I'd love to be the intermediary to help that process out as well too. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Much love to you.
Thank you. Take care.